Hey everybody, welcome to episode 19 of Spike Drop. We're actually back doing the thing. It's been a hot minute. It's been busy. I've been traveling. One of us had something come up, Overwatch League playoffs, whatever else is going on. But we are here now, ready to talk about some Valorant. Kickedtripod here with Yiska and Volamel. And hey guys, good to see you again. Been a while. Been a hot minute here. Been 2 days since we chatted, but it's been a hot minute since we chatted Valorant.
Yeah, true.
It's gonna be good.
A lot of stuff's been going on. We'll have to see what comes with it.
Also, if any of the production, audio, video stuff seems a little off, I am on like a new machine here, so there's a chance that I may have some production issues, and I probably won't be able to fix them. So apologies in advance for that. But if you notice anything, that's probably why. And just let me know. Just let me know. I might miss it. Yeah. Before we get started, though, really quick housekeeping things. Make sure to follow the show at twitch.tv/kickedtripod, twitter.com/spikedrop, or our YouTube at youtube.com/spikedrop. We could really use your subs over at YouTube. Help us grow that channel a little bit, and you know, I think we've got some exciting plans here once Overwatch League off season hits and the next round of tournaments I think kind of start hitting for Valorant. I think we've got some exciting things to be talking about on the show, so you definitely want to stay tuned there. Big thanks to Blue for doing our intro and outro music. She did an awesome job there. And of course, you can find the show on all of our podcast outlets, including iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, anywhere else. So yeah, that's it. Without further ado, let's get into it. Did I tell you guys that Katie and I are looking at getting a cat?
Really? Cat?
A cat. No. We want a cat. We want Choji and a cat.
And a cat.
And another Bernese Mountain Dog.
Oh, geez.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, you want a zoo?
We want 2 dogs and a cat. We bought a zoo! But we're, yeah, in lieu of
What
children.
kind of cat?
Katie has a lot of ideas on it. I want a cute, fluffy one that I can give an awesome name and likes me.
Right.
Your top 5 names for your cat. Go.
Rin is number 1. From
Megatron.
Naruto, we've got Ino, Shikamaru, Artis, Yiska, because we have the Yiscat. So
Right.
It'd be actually really funny to have 2 cats around here called Yiska and Volamel. That's Katie.
Joe, you were a big asshole today.
Katie, we need 2. We need
Wherever
2 cats now. We just made the decision for the family. Yeah. So I think I have 5 names, but I have like 3 names. We'll probably stick with the Naruto motif. Maybe we can get all of, I forget which team number Choji, Ino, and Shikamaru are. But
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So we'll figure it out.
2 cats?
2 cats. Yeah, we need one. And we're going to call them Yiska and Volamel. Is what we're going to do. So that's Katie in chat for the audio listeners. It'll be great. Anyways. And then at night, when we're cuddling our big bed of cats, I can say I cuddled Yiska and Volamel last night.
That's where it comes from. Right.
There's the punchline.
There's probably something psychological there. We'll see. Anyways, ton going on in Valorant. I actually don't want to start with patch notes if it's all right with you guys. Can we talk about some like some of the signings and things like that? There's some, yeah. So first and foremost, Ninjas in Pajamas signed Safe and move Hip and Fearoth to the inactive roster, which rip. I mean, is that just my Overwatch bias where I felt like there was nothing wrong there? Is that an Overwatch bias thing, or is that is there a piece of content somewhere that I'm missing about why Hip
no, I don't
shouldn't
think
be
so.
on this roster, or is this just like a
I mean,
What?
I think their problem really is that like they didn't have the desired outcomes.
Yeah.
And you couldn't actually put it towards anyone in particular. I always thought that Hip was probably consistently the best fragger on that team. For the positions that he got to play.
Yeah.
They've recently been dropping off a little bit, which is also has to do with just like the type of tournament. The type of tournaments that they've been playing is just, it's pretty rough, right? Like you cannot expect them to bring it to FPX and G2. I don't think that's
sure. Like in their last outing at the Blast Twitch Invitational, only 4 teams being invited, them being 4th very clearly out of 4, is disappointing, but that's like easily the top 4 teams in Europe, or at least you'd think. If you go back a little bit farther, you look at, you know, the level Clash 2,
right,
and they get top of their group next to Skade, Team Liquid, who fall to who I believe is the Swedish, my mistake. Swedish lineup for Skade, and then Prodigy obviously still maintaining their kind of like mix-up roster, kind of pug feel, like just kind of holding and hoarding players. And then NiP losing to Bonk in the semifinals. Like that's unexpected to say the least. Like this team has not been performing well.
Well, I feel like that's exactly the level, and they rarely perform under that. Like you have probably like 5 teams in Europe, and they are 5.
Yep,
that's just how it looks.
I
right?
think
like
you can. They go from 4th to 5th, at least in my eyes. Granted, I don't spend a ton of time picking apart European Valorant as much as I'd like to. But yeah, they feel like a 4th to 5th place team, and they can kind of bounce between that, but they usually don't go below that.
Yeah.
What do you guys believe in external competitive factors motivating results? Like Yassine really hating NiP for not giving him a chance on the roster. Like, do you think that could like be kind of an X factor? Like, I'm not saying that NiP is better than Bonk. I don't honestly think I've seen enough Bonk to say that, but I don't that wasn't this super decisive victory that was like, oh yeah, NiP is like, I think that they could be. I think that there are worlds in which they're 4th, and if they aren't, I don't think it was Hip that was the problem. In making them like a top 3. Like I would assume that your goal as NiP, right? Like I don't think that they're trying to go up against G2. I think Team Liquid is trying to be the best. I think FPX is, you know, a top 3 team, but I don't know that they're necessarily long-term going to be able to sustain a top 3 roster. I don't know enough about Fun Plus Phoenix just as an organization, if I'm being totally honest. But NiP has always kind of been the team that, like, I don't know, like I haven't really seen them look and invest in players that are, you know, that top 1-2 caliber team, and I think that they're kind of hoping for that like 3 to 5 spot based on what they're building.
Right.
Yeah. Not that you build a team to lose or anything, but
sure, of course.
Yeah, they just have the problem that all of their players are pretty good, and all of G2's players are very good to best in class, and it's really hard to upgrade these really solid rosters, because like you don't have an obvious weakness in there, right?
Yeah.
And I suppose like whoever you would have removed would have been a little bit awkward. Also a little surprised by the replacement, and then I mean, there was another name that was part of this report, but they haven't officially said that they signed yet. Let me take it a quick look. Chihuahua.
Oh really?
Yeah, wasn't that the other guy that was?
I hadn't heard.
Report?
I was genuinely gonna ask.
Wait, let me,
because I planned on doing some content. towards NiP's direction. So I was generally going to ask Emil, see if they had actually signed anybody. But if that's the case, if there was some sort of report, then maybe I won't. Also not somebody that like stands out, it seems like.
Yeah, I feel like there was a Nell report that mentioned it. Maybe I'm completely mixing up the names in that, but like yeah, I'm just looking it up, trying to find the report, but that will probably take a bit longer.
Is this good audio content?
Yeah, no,
not your fault.
Like
I'm like, I don't know.
That's my point. Yeah. Like, let's just move on.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So, anyways, NiP sign safe, bench Hip and Fearoth, or move them to inactive. Like, by the way,
it doesn't even feel like inactive.
Yeah, by the way that they stated it, is very much like they've got some time left on their 6-month contract, and so they're waiting that out, looking for other offers, and we're going another direction.
So chat has also confirmed that Nell reported that Chihuahua from
Tropic. Yes, that's where I saw
is moving over, which is interesting.
Okay. Wow.
Very interesting. Not somebody who I'm familiar with at all.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently played with Prodigy at some point. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that that's actually an upgrade. So
we'll see. I mean, again, we're still in the early phases of kind of building the esport out. So maybe there is a diamond in the rough, and maybe they've scouted it. We'll see. Could be another kind of Zypan. To your point, I think like getting ahead of any kind of like community criticism coming Korea's way, I think he had an absolutely abysmal tournament at the Invitational, at the Blast Invitational. I think he severely underperformed. But I think that was due to NiP going through some turmoil, right?
Could very well be, yeah.
For the future of Fearoth and Hip, I think they could definitely land on their feet. I'd love to see NiP if he wants to step away from actually playing, which it doesn't sound like he actually does. I think he has a good mind for the game. Every team that he's been on has done creative things, kind of ahead of the curve. I give him a lot of credit leading the charge in terms of like abusing bullet penetration. Hip back in the day, really abusing the Vandal before we saw kind of Sentinels popularize the LMGs. I give that team a lot of credit. So this French core that's kind of floating around, I still think there's room for that to actually be a thing. I wouldn't be shocked to see somebody like a Team Vitality come in and like make a play for like an okay French stable roster that, you know, could compete in the future, but getting their foot in the door with Valorant, I think Hip Fearoth would be a good start to that. So this isn't a goodbye forever for Hip and Fearoth. I think they can definitely hang with the best.
That, and like the scene just needs to grow. Let's be honest. Like we need more EU teams. And once that happens, like there's not that many unsigned players that are also just like ridiculously outstanding other than Bonk, who should obviously be signed. But like otherwise, I'm pretty positive that if there was to be another organization, then those would be the first players that you look at, and then maybe you try to find more star players around them, because you just need more firepower. They are very good people, right? Like
they have good players.
Like Hip in general, like he's just smart. He could probably play whatever Pith is playing on G2, right? So like he's not an obstacle whatsoever, and actually has real pop-off potential on weird picks. So I think that's just like, especially in that current unresolved meta state, is probably pretty valuable to have in a team of superstars.
And to, you know, chat rightly pointing out, you know, looking at Sayef and looking at his performance on Bonk, it has been extremely good. Has been, you know, quite the star player for that team. Bringing him over, is going to net some results. I do wonder who takes up. I point the finger at Hip in terms of in-game leading. So who kind of fills in that gap? Who kind of like is the on server leadership figure? Who's calling the shots on the server? Or will they adopt some sort of like loose, like fast and loose play style where you just kind of call strats on the fly, which doesn't strike me as particularly potent or good. But could be okay for now, if that makes sense. They could bridge the gap between now and trying to find an in-game leader. So I don't know. I am interested to see what this new NiP lineup looks like. I do think at some point they're going to like need to find an identity, because it's you're now kind of rotating through. You're working on your third actual team of players that you're working through, right? Like the first attempt was with the Paladins roster coming in, who showed some promise, had some creative, styles of play. Wasn't the right fit. I was underperforming. So you let them go. You bring in this kind of French core, this French mix. Now you're working through that, and it's like, okay, what's the goal here? What's the end goal? Because if you're trying to win, if you're trying to be the best Valorant team, I don't know that this is the direction. And if, to what John's saying, if you are just trying to pick like a middling, good but not great, not going to win anything, maybe like third, fourth is the goal here, then why is this just this massive rotating wheelhouse of players? I feel like they've gone through more players than any other, like what I think we'd all consider like a tier 1 org. Outside of maybe like Prodigy, it doesn't feel like anybody else has gone through the players that NiP has. So it's like, okay, when does the buck stop? When is the eye of the storm gonna hit? That's kind of what I'm looking at with NiP. When are you okay with your roster and make small changes?
I'm kind of okay with that though right now. Like we've only gone through the Ignition series stuff. Like you want to do it now. You want to wait for something that clicks. Hope that you create something that like G2's done. I think Sentinels is really close to. Cloud9 is probably really close to as well. Like cool. This is what we're kind of taking. This is the roster that we're taking our team into the next whatever milestone, the next chapter of whatever competitive Overwatch is, or not Overwatch, Valorant is going to be, because right now it is it's very low stakes to make pretty big changes. Whereas if you're not making changes and you're not happy, the chances of you kind of going into that next step and succeeding with a roster is pretty low. So I don't know. I applaud that. I just think that my Overwatch bias is showing, and I'm like, not hip, man. Not hip. Come on.
I've always been a big fan of like failing fast, but it doesn't seem like anything's sticking. Maybe this is the exception. Maybe now that they found some good pieces. I've been a big fan of Rhyme. I think Lucker's good. Create definitely has his moments. Safe's good as well. Like maybe this is the exception to that rule. Maybe this is like where they finally like kind of start to build. But I don't know. I get very, very weird vibes from NiP. Not a bad team by any means, but the amount of rotation they've had is, I'd be lying if I didn't say it was concerning.
Yeah. On the other side, though, on NA, we do have some pretty, I don't know if it's big news or it's news or whatever, but ANDBOX is making a play in Valorant, which is pretty cool. They signed 2 coaches and 2 players. So they signed Android and Warden. And Android, I believe, comes from like E-United, Complexity, Lazarus, most recently with Orgless. And again, this is Counter-Strike, so like Yiska is probably far more knowledgeable than I am about these people. And then Warden, who's I guess been around for a while, part of CSGO, Complexity Squad, and I believe the players. So then we have players in, again, is it Gogi? Good
day. Good question.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who doesn't know. So they add Goji as the assistant coach. So Warden head coach, Goji assistant coach, and they add Ye and Android as their players to start building off of. And again, I apologize. I have 0 CSGO experience. So like these, it's like back in Overwatch when they signed these TF2 pros and people could go off on like, oh, they were here doing this and that. And I was just like, sweet. Cool. It's definitely something to know. They've got CSGO backgrounds. But besides that, I don't have a ton of info. And I don't know, have we seen them actually compete in Valorant yet?
These two particular players, it looks like EA did, but not very much. Played in the Counterlogic Gaming Blitz Cup #1 on Jacked Gamers. So again, not somebody, at least in my wheelhouse of
they asked
knowledge.
me to play on that squad.
Definitely 2 players that have not stuck out, nor do I recall hearing about from CSGO. Warden definitely rings some bells as like an old school pro / coach / manager. I'm not entirely too sure, but
no, he was. Yeah. Should I tell a little fun story about that?
Sure.
So, Warden used to be like what part of the old Complexity lineup, right? And was he? Wait, maybe I'm mixing something up.
Sure, that sounds right.
Counter-Strike, Complexity. Yes.
Gaming 2007. Evil Geniuses 2009.
Okay, no. Okay, then I'm actually mixing stuff up because it would have had to have been a different time, maybe.
Okay.
So basically, like during that time, Complexity and Evil Geniuses had a little bit of a fight with each other. Let's say, in terms of like like Complexity at the end of the year, just like Jason Blake just said, okay, guys, give me some time, I'll get a sponsor. Then we can resign you. And then that Complexity roster completely went to AG. Now, I was a writer for Complexity, but in World of Warcraft. So when I then did an interview with a player from EG and asked for like if we could do that, which by the way was Azael, the ridecaster.
Okay. Yeah.
All comes together in esports. Then like the org, like Evil Geniuses, didn't want that to be on the Complexity side. So then it turned into, like, I won't go into the details, but it was pretty delicate how that was handled. I'm not 100% sure if Warden was even part of that roster at that time, because it seems like he had joined Evil Geniuses already like way before. But I suppose he was one of the on the receiving end of the Complexity roster. I'm not too sure about the details there, but yeah. Overall, everyone's still around, so minor quibble. Everything's still fine in esports, which is nice. But yeah, like it's interesting because he was an older veteran and also someone that had a great mind for the game and has stuck around in Counter-Strike. We will have to see how that translates, right? There are definitely also Valorant coaches CSGO coaches where it isn't that successful.
Right.
I won't name names, but they also Counter-Strike legends.
Looking at you. He won't say names, but I will. So, ANDBOX. So far, I mean, yeah, you've got 2 seemingly promising CS pros coming in, or, prospects from CS coming in. I hope that this isn't going to be another just dull reporting in CS players. They kind of fail to compete and then you move on. Like there are genuine talents that have proven themselves whether it be in North America, the CIS region, whether it be Europe, that are kind of starting to be born within this game in particular. And we're just trying to lean, it feels like teams and orgs are leaning too heavily into like the past experience right now. And we know that across esports history and team building as far back as looking at even League of Legends, right? Taking people from old Dota pros and, you know, people from Han and stuff like that. Like, you want people that are endemic to the game because they know the game. It doesn't, it might be able to transition right now, but for the longevity, you want the, dare I say, tens, right? Yes, tens competed in you know, CS, but you need that endemic star player. You need that endemic, like, fantastic team that is just built in Valorant. And maybe that can be bridged with CS players, but I think it's best to start looking at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, because they don't have that experience, and start to build from there. Looking at, you know, I look at Immortals in that same way. A team that has done that very well, has, you know, that strong coaching staff, and it's not, and that's no you know, shame to Warden. It can't take away from what he's done in CS, but it's, I'm concerned with the future of some of these, you know, coaches coming in and just like looking too heavily at the resume and not at what is going to be long term in terms of building not only the scene but your team. Does that make sense? Hopefully I wasn't too rambly.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy that ANDBOX is building teams outside of, you know, just their Overwatch League franchise. So that's great. Good to hear. Can't say the same for some of these other teams. Get on it. It doesn't surprise me that ANDBOX is one of the first to really start to build out their portfolio and actually like become like an esports brand. Right. They're doing it all right. Their marketing's sick. This team on paper seems to be led well. We'll see how it fills out, but definitely is promising. There's some red flags in terms of just wider scope things, not specifically with just ANDBOX though. But yeah, I think it's generally good things all around. People are interested in Valorant. Happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, ANDBOX obviously has done an amazing job with NYXO and Overwatch, right? I don't know how are like the subliners as far as like COD League goes. I hear a lot of like Empire, like just what I see. I see a lot of Dallas. Empire, and I see and this is probably my bias. I see some Rocker in there, but that's probably just me being from Minnesota, so I follow them and stuff like that. But I haven't I can't say I see a ton of subliner stuff, but that also doesn't mean that they're not huge and a lot of people love them. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's
excited to see what they do.
They tend to do it right so far.
Yep. Happy to have them. Glad to have, you know, another team that's doing it right, another organization rather that's doing it right. Because this isn't even just the team. This is the whole deal. This is the subliners. This is the NYXL. ANDBOX is a brand. You can kind of trust them. I'd trust them. They'll do you right. So, happy to have them.
So I do want to, and this is embarrassing. I need to be vulnerable for a moment. We've been out of this for over a month since our last stuff. Can you guys tell me what has changed in the game so far? Like, if we're talking about just kind of overall patches, meta shifts, can you like get me caught up a little bit?
So the first thing you got to know is you're constantly flashed. That's the first thing.
Breach has 3 flashes now.
Reminds me of my college experience.
There's a great clip by was it it was an FPX member.
I think I know that Scream had one that I thought was pretty comical. It was in the tournament. I think it was like part from a clip from the finals.
Zypan. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the capacity to open a tweet on stream just so we can all enjoy how
obnoxious
Pepega this game is? Or is that...
I might. I probably could. Send it to me.
So that's the one stupid thing. Another thing that they changed, or they actually announced that they're going to do changes to the operator. So that's exciting. We'll see what that brings. The Guardian has been changed. It's a little cheaper. Shoots a little bit faster, but it's weird. There's something about like after the first 3 bullets, right? Like I think it gets quicker after that.
This gun just keeps getting cheaper.
So
I don't
weird.
get it.
I mean, as long as nobody's playing it, you gotta do something, right? You gotta find the niche.
I feel a tangent brewing, so you finish this out.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Right. And then there was something. Oh yeah, raise the jump packs have been greatly nerfed in terms of the kill pressure impact that it has, because now when it's on the floor, it needs 0.5 seconds in order to reach 50 damage
Max
again.
damage. Yeah.
If you detonate it mid-air, it will only be 10 damage. And you can no longer damage allies with it.
Thank you, base riot.
It gets rid of a lot of griefing, I feel.
Yeah.
So
I'm watching this clip
overall,
right now. It's on the stream. Oh my god, that's so dumb.
right.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's what
It
you
is a
see when
lot.
you meet God, pretty much.
Yep.
It's just like a bouncing around light ball. Don't walk into the light.
Oh my god.
There
That's
are
like
6
those are like
flashes.
uninstall moments, yeah.
Right.
If both teams have breach and you just are in the perfect spot, which it looks like Saipan is, you have 6 flashes potentially.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to get in the way.
With 2 birds basically like doing like mating calls in the tropical woods or whatever, like whoop whoop. It's just stupid sound as well.
Yep, breach is
Got it. So breach is in.
almost a must pick.
Is Sage out again? So like, I know that when kind of I ended up leaving and traveling, I know Sage ended up being like,
Sage got hit quite a lot.
She was on her way out, and at that point, it wasn't quite determined on if it was going to flip back to Sage relatively quickly and meta correct, and people were just kind of like, hey, we found something really quick, and then like Sages figured out how to counter it, and Sages are back in. But it looks like, and from what I understand, sounds like Sage is still pretty out.
For the most part, G2 is probably the only team that I've seen as of late that is consistently still using her. Yeah, at this point, with her wall getting gutted, with her heal kind of taking some hits now, it's getting to a point where you could probably justify picking somebody else. But yeah, she's the thing is, I don't genuinely think that we'll ever see the end of Sage unless they like completely make her unplayable. Like unless they like make her wallpaper thin, like make the heal like completely like it's 100 health over like 75 seconds. Like unless they completely just like break her. I think she allows you to do a lot that really nobody else gives you. Nobody else can really like manipulate the geometry of the map the same way that Sage can. Yes, you can interact with it a little easier now with like the health increasing as the duration of the wall lasts. And it starts at like a lower health. So like if you place it in front of people, they can kind of break it really, really simply. The heal kind of getting nerfed. It still gives you the opportunity to be able to peek and take quick angles and be able to kind of band-aid that so you're not just taking constant chip pressure unless you're just constantly just peeking to duel instead of peeking to gain info. Think of all the times you see people jump peek, just shoulder peeking, taking op hits. You can heal that back up. Sage gives you that kind of leeway. There's really nobody else that really challenges that role. So I do think like Sage will always have a place, especially as we see maps increase in creativity. I still am banging the drum of bullet penetration and wall banging becoming more and more prevalent. So if you're getting tagged through walls, Sage can help you, mitigate that as much as, feasible or is feasible. yeah, I don't think we'll see her ever completely leave unless they ruin her. But yeah, definitely down in pick rates.
Yep.
Interesting. Any other major balance changes or whatever that I may have missed? Here's the thing: I'm getting a new graphics card, right? Like as soon as I can get my hand on a 3080 or 3090, it's on, and I'm playing, and I don't want to be like hopping in. I want to be hopping in on a bad hero, you know?
Right. I think for like if you, I think for instance, like there's a good chunk of heroes that just still must pick. Sova is a lot of must pick stuff. You're not doing anything wrong there. Breach definitely also at the moment. There's some experimentation if you want to do that. Like Killjoy is being played.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Reyna is being played. Is there any other like wild hero? Oh, sorry, agent.
I still think NA in terms of compositional choices, at least before the Breach patch. Obviously, Phoenix was being played. I would imagine that a lot of teams are still going. I think Breach is like a different enough play style that you might still have some NA teams relying more on the Phoenix just because they haven't had enough time to be able to sink into the Breach, to be able to feel right, or to be able to feel strong on it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of just like open heroes. If you have Arena, you can play Arena. Team Liquid is showing that off really, really well. I think it is and can be an interesting tool when fighting, especially in NA against double ops. Seeing C9 use that quite a lot. Team Liquid in Europe using it quite a bit. Omen being a mainstay across the board. It seems pretty open in terms of what you're going to play. There are some like go-tos that are just like almost too good not to pick, but yeah, I think we're in a healthy metascape. Have heard some interesting words from the devs looking at 50 to 60 heroes, of course, over the course of Valorant's existence. That's their ideal amount of agents, which is a big number. I think that's very, very large, but obviously with 5 to 6 previously stated, I think with the introduction of the acts and the stories and kind of explaining that, we were expecting 5 to 6 a year. It's just a lot. Didn't expect it to be that much, but we'll see. We will see. 50 to 60 at the end of Valorant's life cycle seems to be the goal, at least. But yeah, for right now, in terms of the meta that's being played, in terms of the agents that are being picked, it seems fairly open. There are some like Sova that are being played quite a lot, but I think there's a good amount of flexibility, I'd say.
Great. Awesome. I feel caught up and ready.
Do you want to talk about the Guardian in a little bit more? Do you want to tangent, or do you want to get?
So yeah, tell me about the Guardian.
Okay. So much in the same way that Riot does their design cycles with League of Legends and TFT and whatever other game, I'd love to see big seasonal changes come to Valorant. So if we're going into, and hopefully I'm getting the proper definitions right, hopefully chat can correct me if I'm wrong, or you guys. But the acts are the bigger picture kind of seasonal. Instead of seasons, Valorant calls them acts, right? So in terms of like when we move to a new act, I'd like to see some economic changes, some gun changes, maybe add a gun, maybe remove a gun, maybe differentiate what side gets what guns, a la CSGO. In CS, you don't get all the same guns. It is kind of an asymmetrical menu or purchasing system. So maybe the defenders have the Guardian. Maybe the attackers have something different. Kind of balancing asymmetrically based on what guns you can pick was always kind of interesting to me, and gives you something more to look at as the viewer. At least what I kind of found interesting when watching CS is like, oh, can the CTs pick up an AK because the AK has these properties, or a Vandal, to kind of translate it. It has different properties that they can't just buy on their own, so they have to kind of procure them from the enemy. I think that's really something I'd like to see. I'd like to see the removal of signature abilities at some point. It doesn't seem to be sustainable for the future of the game, with how like strong a lot of the signature abilities are and how just you always have them. It doesn't feel impactful when you see somebody's camera placement. It's just like, oh, cool. Everybody has a camera because you just start with it and it just comes off cooldown. Looking at Omen's rechargeable smokes, like there's just too much stuff happening without much of like an impact on or repercussions for it. So like looking at the Guardian and seeing how often they're like reducing the cost, like if you made it asymmetrical, right? If you made like the buy system asymmetrical for like attackers and defenders, and you just gave the Guardian to one side, I feel like you could give it a little bit more love and give it a home. But right now it just doesn't fit. There's no point in buying it. Does that make sense?
Because they dropped the cost on it, right? It used to be 25 and then went to 23.
It used to be just slightly cheaper than a normal rifle. I think it was like 2,700 to start with, and they dropped it to 25, and now they're dropping it to 24 and giving it this weird like improved weapon recovery from 0.35 after 3 bullets to 0.2925 after 3 bullets. It's like,
want me to read what Steele said about the gun?
Yeah.
Sure.
I tried the Guardian in DM yesterday. Felt okay, and it might be a good way to do a full buy on 1 or 2 players if they spent money on abilities or a cheap weapon on low buy eco rounds. Making the enemy rebuy as much as possible allows you to take swing rounds.
Ideally, I agree. I think, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it really does feel like certain players have terrible first bullet accuracy, and that to me screams like proficiency with the Guardian. Like if you're not already leaning into the Vandal, something that Europe is definitely trended towards, I don't see why you would ever buy the Guardian. If you cannot consistently one tap people, it feels like the Guardian is going to lose most duels to like most guns.
Right.
So like, yeah, in theory, I agree with Steele in saying, yeah, if I can consistently just like one bang kids, 100%, like you actually have like a decent gun now. The Bulldog feels completely dog to actually buy. The amount of times the spread kind of kicks too hard and you miss a bullet and you only hit him twice. You have to constantly ADS to get the burst fire. Like it feels bad. I'd like to see that changed. I just think like for the future of the game, not to completely kick a dead horse, but I'd like to see an asymmetrical market. I'd like to see different guns for different sides. It might even increase how the game feels just from like the average or the casual player base, having different guns to kind of play with based on like the different seasons of Valorant. Rotating out guns, bringing them back when you have a better idea what you want to do with them in later seasons. I think it'd be cool. I don't think just being stagnant is very interesting.
Yep.
Would you like to see the Vandal be completely removed to the T side? Kind of like CSGO is? Like if the Phantom was like a CT sided gun and the Vandal was only T side, that was like that was the separation of the rifles.
Right.
Is that something like, is the asymmetrical system something that you're interested in for Valorant?
It would be interesting because it would therefore introduce this interesting dynamic of wanting to pick up a weapon from the other side.
Right.
Like it will in CS, like people pick up AKs.
Yeah, they go and pick up AKs. They don't want the M4. They want that specific tool and that specific like stat set that the AK gives them.
Right.
So seeing that, maybe putting the Ares and the Odin on separate sides, like divvying up the guns that you can buy, could give you room to better argue that maybe the Guardian deserves more of a buff. Maybe we can be a little bit more aggressive with the balancing of the Guardian because it's only able to be used on this side.
Maybe I'm like overthinking this, but I would think that a change like this almost has impact on map design, because it's like,
for sure,
if you have one weapon that's only available on defense, and that has very high bullet penetration, and the other one doesn't,
right?
Then, like, introducing that now when you probably didn't design maps in that specific way, probably would make it so that the game plays in a chaotic way that you didn't anticipate. That doesn't mean that it's a bad way. It's just uncontrolled, and like it's like it gets into that weird field where you need to relearn what you know and might actually have to make changes on your maps, possibly, to have desired outcomes. No, not necessarily. It's just like, it feels like a small change. No.
Yeah, it's definitely like a knock on. Like, it's going to create knock on effects. 100%.
Right.
Like, I agree.
Right. So, yeah, that one needs to be thought through a lot. It was interesting, the choice that they didn't do that anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting to see that they sort of like had intrinsically, like, the M4 equivalent be the better gun for most people
for a long time. Yeah.
But like, I feel like eventually people could just come down to first bullet accuracy, which probably is less valuable in Valorant than in CS, because pre-aiming is a lot harder in this game. But generally speaking, because like,
really,
you don't know which angle a jet will be rounding the corner at which
I think
y-axis, right,
whether it be jet or omen or raise. I can see that there's more to account for, but you also get more information. Like, this game definitely like gives you a lot of info, or it has at least the potential to. It doesn't always, but there's definitely a potential to.
Right. So like, this is like an incredibly complicated question. That's like a butterfly effect of probably unforeseen proportions. And we'll have to see how that would work. It's interesting. It's not inherently like super needed, I feel.
Okay.
Cool. I'm all about. I had to leave. So free people who watch a video, they know that I've had to step away. I didn't actually step away for the normal reason this time. In
Hopefully
San Francisco, everything is good. In San Francisco, there is something called a cat lounge, where you can go and hang out, and they just bring you cats to hang out with while you chill, watch. I don't know if you like what you do, if you just chill. It's called Kit T. KIT.
And they bring you cats.
They bring you cats and kittens. There's a kitten one and there's a cat one. The cat ones are residents and the kitten ones are adoptable.
Cute.
But it's a little expensive and they're booking up fast. So we had to decide if we were going to. It's a big life decision, guys, okay? Cats are important.
Yes.
So, anyways.
Interesting.
My bad.
I've heard of like cat cafes, but the cat bringing it to you, now that's some entrepreneurial stuff right there. I'm all about it. But yeah, two directions we could kind of continue in. We could obviously get into some of the more recent events and tournaments, or I can continue to browbeat you with tangents. One of the two. You pick.
We've got a good like other 20 minutes. How do you want to fill 20 minutes, dude?
That's the thing. I don't know. Yiska, do you want to talk about the Twitch Blast Invitational, or do you want to hear me complain about why there isn't a pick and ban phase yet?
Ooh, right. I wanted to see the argument why you think that is the case.
So
that should be the case.
For those who are not familiar with me from Overwatch, the readability of a game is a big reason why I think an esport succeeds, right? The more easily accessible, the more easily understood, the more easily like read the game is, I think, is like naturally correlative to like success. Look at CS, look at this game in terms of Valorant, and looking at what it's trying to mimic. I think with the number of heroes that Riot wants to put in, being 50 to 60, 5 or 6 a year, and how obnoxious certain heroes can be. Looking at Jet now, looking at Raze when she launched, looking at Breach now. We need a pick ban system sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't hate it right now.
I don't know. Feels a little early, doesn't it?
I mean, it
Isn't
does,
it
but
already kind of cool? Like, do you really want to ban out, for instance, like when NiP played Killjoy as one of the first
sure
teams? Do you really want them to have that banned out and like just like? I'm not sure if teams just have the breadth of strategies and defaults to just like improvise this early in the game. I feel like there's not that many teams that even have like a large amount of defaults specialized to their specific agent rosters. So it would feel very just like chaotic. We're hero pooling at that point. So I'm not sure.
Oh, hero pools. Let's do that.
Definitely isn't hero pools. I think it's a different skill set that teams have to naturally get built up, and I'd like to see this introduced sooner rather than later. Because I think it's inevitable, right? I think with 50 to 60 heroes, there are some that are going to be useless. There are some going to be overly useful, and there are some that are going to be designed to be overlapping. So like this hero feels a lot like this hero, and like they can fill similar roles, but they do it in different ways, or their properties are slightly different. I'd like to see this, like any kind of like baseline system that is inevitable, kind of happen sooner rather than later to like kind of curb any pushback against it, because it's been that way for so long. We're at an early point in Valorant's life cycle to say like, hey, for the future of the game, for how the meta is going to trend, I look at that Breach clip and I say, is it really that fun for a player to get flashed 6 times in a row with the potential to have more if Phoenix was to be in
It's fun
kind
to
of
flash
mirrored
a
against
player
them?
6 times in a row.
Huh? It's
It's fun to flash a player 6 times in a row.
It depends on, I guess, what kind of flashing we're talking about. Yeah, it's a lot of the same reason. Maybe. It's a lot of the same problems that I have with Overwatch, where explaining or having to try and explain mirrored heroes is a problem, I think, in and of itself, and already kind of like disconnects people a little bit. Something that one of their own games in terms of Riot has solved with League of Legends. I think it does a lot that people understate, and I think introducing it now would be good. Yes, it would change a lot of things. Yes, it's adding a little chaos, but I think it has to happen sooner or later.
I think that there becomes a point when the number of heroes we have will make it so it makes sense. But I personally, for me, I mean, just like based on you bringing this topic on it and not even being in our show notes, so I can't like write anything down. I worry that it's too early and pick bans would be too impactful early on. I think after you have, let's say, what are we at now? 13?
Okay, let me
What
tweak
if
it
we're
slightly.
at like 20?
Yeah, 13, 14.
Yeah,
about right.
so let's just say hypothetically we're at 13. Like I could see that being something that we add at 20 to 25, not because we're unsure of the viability of a pick ban system, just the impact of a pick ban system at, sub 10 is, even if you're doing 1, 2 each side, that's, banning 20% of the heroes versus 5 to 10% of the heroes. I think there's a little bit, I don't know. It at that point, it doesn't shouldn't just Valorant ban for you? Like, shouldn't Riot just say you can't play Breach?
That's where I maybe need to differentiate the terminology. Instead of pick ban, let's start with just a pick phase where, okay, me and John are going to simulate a draft. Okay. You're going to pick your first agent, and then I'm going to pick an agent, and then you pick an agent. So like, let's say you pick Breach. I'm going to pick Jet. I can't then pick Breach, and nor can you pick Jet. So instead of picking and banning, we're just picking back and forth. So like the pool still feels full. You still feel like you have an opportunity to get somebody who can play entry, to get a sentinel, to get a, you know, we're going to have these heroes that overlap with one another. So I don't think it's as meta shattering as it feels. I think right now, yes, there isn't a ton of wiggle room in terms of like other viabilities. You know, we have a couple sentinels to work with. We have some duelists. Some are better on the maps or certain maps than others at the moment. Viper feels like a dead pick, right? Like there are problems with it, but I think sooner rather than later, the system is going to have to come in, and I'd like to see it on the former of those two choices. I'd like to see it come in sooner. I'd like to see it introduced with like the next new hero. I'd like to see, you know, we're gonna have duds. We're gonna have our Vipers. We're gonna have what we thought of as Reyna's, right? I am a dud. That's true.
Get off Viper.
Viper needs love, bro. She needs to be useful.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
Get off it, man.
Like you just have some agents that are just like unplayable. I don't know.
And I think that's fine. Like with 50 to 60 agents, we're gonna get some cruds. We're gonna get some big poops, right? So instead of having like forcing them to be like brought up to the same level, adding bans, adding a pick phase, adding some dimension to like what heroes are available. Because if I pick a good one away from you, maybe that bad hero in terms of like the general consensus becomes a little better, fills the same role. It might not be good when compared to everything in a vacuum, but if you change the circumstances slightly, something that the player base has control over, and it isn't just completely randomized, a la hero pools from the Overwatch League, you get a little bit more depth. You get some dynamic kind of play. You get a little bit more strategy as a whole, or tailored strategy rather.
Yeah, I just like I'm worried. So if I'm understanding correct, you can't then have any sort of mirror comps, right? So
no,
the heroes are completely unique.
Yep.
I
feel like
think that there's a little bit like
a lot.
Like is Jet? Can anybody move like Jet?
Nope.
So
not technically, there are people
kind
who
of
have
close
obviously
off a lot of like mobility.
Sure.
To whatever team picks a Jet first. And like, I get it to the point, like I'm fine with a little bit of a chess match on this is a stronger movement hero. And by us taking it, it means that you don't get it. And I think that there could be some merit to that. But when you have, I think, again, heroes that are still so unique, even though there is definitely homogeny,
right.
When you have heroes that are so unique, I think that we need to let that get saturated a little bit to like, oh, at this point we have 30 heroes and basically 3 Jets at this point. And then you start kind of, going, well, this Jet does this better. This version of Jet does this better kind of thing. And maybe that kind of makes sense, or maybe just not making that unique. I don't know. Something just doesn't quite sit right with me, but at the same time,
it's too early.
You might also just have a way better look into the future than I do on this.
I mean, I think it's I feel strongly in the fact that it's inevitable with 50 to 60 agents and like the creativity that some of these agents already are showing. When we look at Reyna, when we look at Killjoy, like they're definitely like similar to some other heroes, but completely fulfilling the jobs that they're supposed to in very different ways. So I really do believe that this is going to happen at some point. Maybe it's just too early. Maybe we need another couple heroes. Maybe we need some Jet-like heroes to reduce the uniqueness of it. So we have a little bit more overlap so that we can't just say, well, I pick a Jet and I take all your smokes, and therefore, like Dream saying in chat, like you don't have any kind of utility to work with. Like maybe we do need a little bit more overlap. So maybe right now introducing it would be a little much.
Yeah, I definitely don't doubt that there's a place for some sort of hero picking and restriction system in Valorant. I'm all for it. I am on the let's let it play out a little bit. We don't have a major league yet. We don't have real esports stakes yet.
Yeah.
We've
The thing is-
we've got a development team that I think so far has been relatively receptive and reactive to balancing and creating new systems.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that is a good spot. And I think Overwatch was in the same spot when it came out, where there was maybe less so on like the esports system side, but at least on the game balance and system side, there's this level of support that like you can. Yes, we could make a better esport product now, but it might hurt the longevity of the game as just a consumer level game that ultimately feeds esports fandom, I guess. And maybe that's taking it a level too far. I'm all for it. I think I'm like, talk to me when we're at 20. I think that like talk to me in a year.
It's also, I don't quite understand what you want to solve with that. What kind of problem do you currently see that needs to be solved?
I'm very against, and this was a gripe that I had even looking at like Overwatch, looking at like the no hero limit and seeing like repeat heroes and how that is difficult to explain to people. And if that's difficult to explain, I can't imagine how it is difficult to read. So making the game easier to read, and it's not like a hard game to like walk in and like kind of understand generally. Like I point the gun at people, I shoot them, I have some spells I can throw. But as we increase with more creative agents entering the pool, I see the game getting more, and I think we've already seen this. I see this game getting a lot more utility focus than gunplay focus. And I worry about the game's readability.
Right.
Maybe I'm jumping in front of a problem that doesn't exist just yet and trying to like get ahead of things. But explaining why there's two different Sovas feels weird.
Right.
It feels more dynamic and interesting when I say like, oh, well, we picked Sova because of this reason, and they tried to answer with it. Like,
can you
I don't know,
in League
maybe
of
I'm thinking
Legends
about it too
have
much.
the same hero
I think
on both sides of the map?
No, you just pick one.
Yeah, but
Like,
there's also like
I understand it's not the same.
Right.
I just like that was just a genuine like sidebar
Right.
question.
No, if you pick Shen, I can't pick Shen.
Got it.
If you pick Garen, I can't pick Garen.
I mean,
just
it
like
used to be like.
I feel like
it
in
used to be like that, kind
shooters, I feel like especially in like FPS type shooter type things though, it's kind of just like understand like you pick from the same thing of heroes. Overwatch I think was confusing. Remember when you'd have like 3 Evas, Tracer, 2 Tracers and a Lucio, like or whatever. I think that is very confusing. Be like, oh yeah, you could be as many of them as you want. But like one per team is like, that team gets to pick from the same pool. I think for me to like kind of answer Yiska's question to you, for me personally, I think just like compositional diversity and problem solving is really interesting when presented in the right way for esports. And a pick ban system or a pick priority system, whatever it ends up being, I think does help that quite a bit. So you aren't seeing the same comps over and over and over again, even though it is largely gunplay focused. And it's also fun to kind of see teams be put into a position where they have to think, and that's my understanding of League of Legends pick ban system without actually knowing the pick ban system, is that it creates kind of these fresh problems to solve with nearly every match. And, and some people think are like, oh, they're so dumb for doing this. Why would they do this? And like, oh, I can't believe they did that after they banned this. And like seeing that kind of meta talk, I think is really great for an esport that has a strong core audience. And I think that if you can bring that to your game, I think you should try to.
You should.
But I'm honestly less on the readability side of things. I think for me on that though, I think I'm more just on the, like, don't give me the same match 5 times.
I think that's another good point.
Like,
I adopt that into, my argument as well. Like,
because you
want to see some diversity. You want to kind of, have the little kid in you to kind of play within Yiska's framework for a second. Like, oh, there's some novelty here. Like, why did they pick this? Like, give the color commentator something to break down. Why did they pick this? Why is this a creative choice? Give the devs something to talk about a little bit more. I think, like, as a whole, like, modern esports don't really have too much. There's a lot to talk about, but nothing tangible, it feels like, to the viewer, where it's like, okay, why is Ameng, why is this player playing Wrecking Ball in Overwatch? Why are they picking this bot lane duo? Let's dive into it. Let's talk about it. Let's open this discussion. But instead of just saying, hey, we're going to play the same thing over and over, and we know why, like, fans are turned off to that. So it's, again, maybe I'm jumping in front of a problem that doesn't exist yet. Maybe I'm jumping in front of a problem that isn't ever going to exist. But
I think you're bringing up a good concern to a problem that I don't think any of us want in our game.
Yeah.
Our game. It's our game. Yeah, I think it's just kind of really interesting to see. Like, we're definitely still in the ramp up page or stage of Valorant as well, right? Where it's like there's a lot of identity finding. There's a lot of just moving pieces across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to go, like, the new weapon skins that they just showed off this past week is the first time that I think I've wanted to spend money on Valorant gun skins.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why it is. The white, black, and gold ones, dude, get me every time. With the katakana on the side, like, I don't. Fine, here you go. Take my money. I don't even care anymore. And of course, they do like a whole, like, the whole Fates theme and TFT, and just like I'm just like, well, there goes my wallet.
Riot does put out some good stuff. They seem to get it.
And they're expensive. Like, I'm really
crazy.
appreciative of, as much as I feel like Blizzard is kind of buried Overwatch into the ground in some ways, as far as their like unwillingness to just monetize some of their stuff. There's and by monetize I mean like the loot box system right now is arguably so consumer friendly that the incentive for players to spend money is pretty low. Which is why we need an Overwatch 2 apparently. Like Riot's on the other side where I'm like, ooh, $35 for a knife, and I know that's nothing compared to CS:GO where I'm like, ooh,
yeah,
but
that's also like very consumer driven. Like, you can get a knife that's pretty cheap, or you could get like a super expensive knife. You get a skin here that's super cheap, or you get like a super expensive skin. So it's kind of balanced out in a way.
But I don't know, man. I like these conversations, and I also am okay with the fact that at the end of most of them, when we discuss this, it's like, let's just let this play out a little bit longer.
We don't have an answer, really.
There's
no conclusive. Yeah.
I do know that I don't want to see the same people on the same heroes or agents, every single match. And
every single match.
We've always seen, well, not always seen, but especially at the very beginning, and I think it's been largely consistent throughout, that teams, run the same, for sure, core 4 heroes. And sometimes there's a little bit of diversity in the 5th, depending on the team and the map, the side that they're, attacking or defending first. We've seen that, and that isn't like, especially after you've kind of learned the game to a level, like, okay, here comes the breach smoke, and then here comes the thing, and then the other thing. It gets old quick. And so, like, I didn't necessarily dislike it in the beginning because I was still learning the thing. And it's like, it's nice to have that consistency actually map to map to map, because you can kind of understand and follow a little bit easier. Whereas now it's kind of like, okay, like, show me the next level, the next level of depth, I think, for the game.
For sure.
I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Like, you know me, guys. I don't really care. Like, if it's,
you say that and then something happens and then you do care. You care a lot.
And you flip out on Twitter. Yeah.
No, I don't care that Mixwell plays 2,000 games on Jet.
Right.
Unless it's like super overpowered and has
eat
like
the same sandwich every day for the rest of your life and be happy about it. Yeah.
Right. If it was a good sandwich, that is.
Yes, of course. The problem is that most people are not like that.
Right.
Yiska is not like most people, is actually, I think, how I want to phrase that sentence. Yiska.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think it's just like the tool doesn't matter as much to me as the story. So, whatever.
Sure.
And that's fair. And to be fair, like, honestly, good story, I think, is much higher on the priority list than that. And if these not having these systems create better story, I would probably be the first one to say, okay, cool, don't do that then.
Right. Right. If like, of course, like you guys could like your point could get me on board if whatever is being played is super boring. We had that in Overwatch with Orisa, right? Like,
sure,
I care about that. I care about, for instance, let's say, someone playing the old race,
sure,
like forever, right? But as long as the tools facilitate story and not necessarily stand in the way or make for weird stories where it's like it gets more random and less skillful, that's the type of stuff where I'm saying, okay, let's tune it down a little or change something, or we need a new system to sort of like change things up so they can settle into something that is once again not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
Like change doesn't need to happen for the sake of change.
For the sake of changing, you need to change because
Sure.
of a reason or something.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
I get that. I totally agree on that front, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big true.
Hey, this is kind of a fun just kind of getting back into
to
it.
the
Just kind of
usual.
chat. Nice casual conversation this week. Just kind of chatting about it. I'm waiting. I don't know if I said it on the show or in the pre-show. I'm waiting on my new graphics card so that I can actually properly play Valorant. Because right now I can basically only play TFT and the WoW Auction House. Even with my new system, it's like, ooh, this is a little slow and stuttery. So I'm excited to get back into it. Katie's been playing.
Nice.
Katie's been into it.
Valorant?
Yeah.
Really?
She's all about playing new games. She loves it. So.
Are you guys not into the new set for TFT?
Well, that was
haven't.
leading up until Fate.
I want to, but
I'm super
just
into
haven't had the
it. I'm
time.
having a ton of fun. I really like it. I think
plan
I
on
probably
doing it
got
at some
like
point.
20, 25 games already. Which isn't I would say it's not a small amount, but it's also not like I've been playing for the
Yeah, it's
last
not crazy.
48 hours straight. But I put a good 5-6 games in a day, I would say.
Nice.
So nice and solid. Figuring it out. Feel pretty good. I gotta say it though, like I know people were really freaking out about the new emotes in TFT, the drum guy with the 2 guitar solos. The drum guy is cool. The two guitar solo guys can go suck it.
It's like screechy.
Well, it is really screechy, and like they weren't really well performed. Like as an audio guy, like they weren't really well performed, and they weren't really well recorded. So they just feel like overly distorted. And I don't know. I'm also a bass player, so I'm like, take out one of those guitars, give me like a sick bass line to it, and then that could be sick. But no, double guitar. Story of my life: more guitar, less bass. Jeez, sad. Yeah, it's but it's fun though. So playing that, hanging out, and I think outside of this graphics card I need to get, like the studio then is just, it's set. It's the first time I can honestly say where I didn't immediately have something else on my list. Like, what's my next thing?
Right. Yeah, you're obsessed with that, and I understand because, like, I feel like, is there anything worse than having 90% of what you want?
No.
But the last 10% being prohibitive to not getting it?
No.
Oh
it
my
sucks.
God.
It's
That's like, you get like a Nintendo 64, like brand new to Christmas, and they forgot the power cable or something.
Yep.
It's like, come on,
or
man.
like they
this is
get you
literal torture.
everything, but you get one of the like Mad Catz controllers.
Ugh.
And not the actual thing, and
Or
you
like a
can't
bad
find them.
game.
Yeah, or like a bad game. Yeah. Yeah, it's so, and it's like right now I'm sitting here without a graphics card, but everything else I'm like, I've got monitors. I'm like, I kind of want matching monitors, but I don't like need that.
You're gonna go stir crazy. You're gonna need a new project.
I think I'm gonna redo our logo for Spike Drop. I've got an idea.
Okay. All right.
Right.
So I think-
Easy.
Yeah, I got a project. think that's what we're gonna do. All right, chat. Thanks for hanging out today. Hope you had fun. We will be back next Friday discussing more Valorant, of course. If you like the show, please do subscribe to the YouTube or on your podcast outlet, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you are checking that out. Twitch.tv/Kickedtripod if you want to watch the show live. Otherwise, twitter.com/SpikeDrop if you want to stay up to date on info about the show. And youtube.com/SpikeDrop is the short link to get to our YouTube. Big thanks to Big_Yogurt for the sub during the show today. Appreciate you a ton. No new iTunes reviews, but if you want to support the show, a really great way to do that for a brand new kind of podcast and a brand new scene. So leave a 5-star iTunes review. Helps us with our discoverability, helps us show up higher on the charts. And most of the charts on like Spotify and Google Play are informed by the overall download numbers, of course, but also the 5-star reviews that people put on iTunes. Right. So even if you're not on an Apple device, the number of 5-star iTunes reviews informs those other platforms, and so they end up being pretty important. So if you're able to do that, thank you a ton. And if you're not, just thanks for listening, for real.
Sure. Thank you.
We do have a game night happening right after this. So we're going to just kind of go, I got to switch up the scenes and stuff like that, but we're just going to go back to this. I think I'm guessing we're playing some Among Us today.
Let's go. Probably what's on the menu.
Probably it.
I
might try to get us to squeeze in a game of Quiplash.
Can we do it without camps though? Like I really want to slog.
Yeah. I think we can. I might leave mine.
Mad.
I don't know what to do. I don't even know if I'm going to... I think I'm going to stream at least until I have to go to a meeting.
Right.
So I don't think we're even going to go offline here. But big thanks to everybody who hung out. Yiska, very quickly, shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
Well, I've been mostly doing other stuff over the week. I did a pretty cool interview. Won't really move Valorant people too much, even though it is a player agent, and therefore it always has something to do with a wider range of esports.
Is that who I think it is?
Probably. Yeah, just that is what's coming up soon.
Always
awesome.
Good to hear.
What about you, Joe? What's going on?
Not a ton. You can obviously follow me on all the socials. I'm sure my name's somewhere around here. Yeah, shout out to FPX, actually making Europe interesting to watch. Shout out to G2, killing it as usual. And Riot, when are we getting our next name? I don't know if it's an act. I don't know the semantics, still getting used to the definitions, but the Ignition series need to continue. Call it whatever you want, but let's get a move on. I need some more tournaments to watch. And I'm tired of watching Complexity suck it up, so let's go. Make a move.
Nice. Well, this is kind of a calm before a storm for a lot of things, right? Like,
sure.
Like October is going to be the beginning of October, end of September is kind of low, but then we've got Overwatch League finals, we've got Shadowlands, we've got Cyberpunk. Are you guys playing Cyberpunk?
Probably.
I just can't imagine not. It really probably to their detriment, I'm worried about. But Cyberpunk is like fixing to be the biggest game of not the last 5-10 years. This is positioned to be a 10-year game, dude. And I'm worried that CD Projekt Red let that get away with them from them a little bit. Unless they actually can deliver on that. I don't know.
They delivered with The Witcher. We'll see if they can recreate it.
Yeah.
I think that the scope of this is a little bit bigger. But yes, I generally agree. Yeah. I generally agree. Dream even asked, has there been a more hyped game? Like, actually, it's tough. It's really tough.
Watch Dogs had a lot of fucking dumb hype around it, but I don't think it was ever like this tangible. Like, this is like...
Yeah, not to that. I think, like... Breath of the Wild had a lot of hype, I think. And I'm just kind of trying to go, and it's tough because Nintendo is such like a weird platform for it. I think like the last GTA 5, I think was super duper hyped. Red Dead Redemption 2 was another one.
Sure.
Right.
So
But it's been a while.
I think
It's been a minute.
I think I'm with some of the people in chat where I'm not. I think it'll be a great game and I think people will love it. I just worry that
But I
people
think it's
have it
gonna
as
Yeah.
you know
Some
has
sort
like
of
the Metacritic score of like we've never rated a game this high. To end up being like, hey, this is a really great fun game. You're gonna enjoy it. It's got the
But it's
grit
got
and the stuff
problems.
that you want, and you're not even the problem. It's just a game. You know, it's just a game. We'll see, chat. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I do, but because I got a new computer basically to just play this on whatever settings I want.
There you go.
Yeah. As for me, you can find me everywhere at Kickedtripod, youtube.com/Kickedtripodyt. Was actually sent this thing. I can't really show it a whole lot on stream, but sent this thing here to review. And I'm going to be doing that. So if you're a content creator looking for some cool new gear, I'm going to be posting some stuff there. Otherwise, everywhere else at Kickedtripod. Thanks for hanging out, chat. We'll see you next time. Spike Drop. See you Monday for Tactical Crouch. Bye.
Bye.